There are several distinct warning signs that senior leaders are not operating as an effective team. Probably the most common sign is that the real meetings are happening in the hallways, in the bathrooms, in people's individual offices. We are not having the discussion around the table together. If you were to film the real meeting, you would not be hearing the important topics in discussion. You would not be seeing constructive conflict. You would see a lot of quiet, a lot of head nodding, people leaving the meeting, and then going into the real conversations. Another warning sign is people lobbying for position before or after the meeting. They don't expect to have a real discussion around the table, so they concentrate on their own agendas and they do everything they can to line up people for an agenda prior to the meeting. A third warning sign is an actual look at meeting agendas and meeting outcomes, with the outcome being we're not talking about the hard issues. We're not talking about the important issues. We're taking care of business, but we're not going deep enough into those things that are truly significant, that are either helping us or derailing us. The fourth key indicator that we have some trouble in the senior team department is we keep revisiting decisions. We talk about an issue, we think we've made a decision, but week after week or month after month, we're coming back to the same topic. There are a number of big reasons that really tie to human nature with regard to why senior leadership teams struggle in this context of team building. The first is just plain conflict avoidance. It's hard to address the elephants in the room. It takes courage. It requires candor. You don't really know how people are going to react, and so it's just easier not to talk about it. And a relatively extreme example I would give you is a board we were invited in to help. They wanted to make progress, and I found out there was an issue they were stuck on for 2 years. When I asked how they typically make decisions, they said they voted, and when I asked if this particular topic had come up for a vote, the answer was no. And the reason it hadn't come up for a vote was because they knew they didn't have consensus, so they kept avoiding putting it on the agenda. So conflict avoidance is huge. Secondly, time is required to talk about the real issues. We take on too much, we're always pressed. The important issues are not always the urgent issues, and so we rush off to the next thing without going deep enough to talk about the meaty material and to resolve issues that are standing in our way. Another reason why senior leaders struggle with team building is some resistance to really collaborate with their cohorts to co-create solutions. We have some senior leaders who have an impression that they must bring the answer, and if they don't really have the answer, they let the issue roll over, and they'll let it roll over for quite a while. The reality is the collaborative sharing, even that showing of vulnerability, that I need your help, let's go forward on this, is an indication of really good leadership. The fourth obstacle in this context is relationships. Not enough time spent on one-on-one connections with people, people really having the feeling and the belief that they matter, that they are connected to the work, that their voice counts. There are 6 keys to effective team building. Probably the most important is the senior leader's courage. When the warning signs are in play that the senior leaders are not operating as an effective team or at as high a performance level as they could, somebody has got to put that issue on the table. And that is the job of the senior leader. So not avoiding potential conflict, but being vulnerable and putting issues on the table, revealing the elephants, articulating those things that need to be addressed. Being sure that the agenda is lined up with the most important work. Again, this requires courage, and without courage, we can't address the hard issues. Number 2 is for the team to organize solidly around the concept that the reason for our meeting is constructive disagreement. If we're going to come into a room and nod our heads without that, and if we're going to withhold our points of view, there's no point in our meeting. The leader could go around to every team member individually, gather input, and at the next meeting present an idea for a solution. That's not the best way to construct solutions or to work together. We have got to have a framework for constructive conflict. Number 3, a senior team needs to commit to make decisions. There are important decision-making processes that could help with this. The clear articulation of what is the issue to be decided, what will be our decision-making pathway, what is each team member's role in the decision, and when do we want to decide by, will help a team move forward and feel a sense of momentum as they do their work. The 4th key to senior team building is individual accountability. That when we come into this room, each one of us around the table is accountable and responsible for upholding our standards and our commitments. That we basically hold hands with a unified, this is who we are, this is where we're going, these are our most significant issues, and we are going to work on these issues constructively until we get completion. Number 5 is that same focus on results. We're here to get results. We understand clearly what our key priorities are, what our goals and targets are, and we can answer the question, where are we now relative to where we'd hope to be? Lastly, a key to team building is relationships. Interestingly, this ties into project management work where the most successful project teams enjoy being together. And it's tough to enjoy being together if we don't know each other well enough and if we're only spending time together around the meeting table. So having some free time together, fun time together, getting to know each other better, appreciating each other is an important component to effective senior teams. An example of a company and specifically a senior leadership team implementing the best practices I can give you is a mid-size accounting firm that had felt stagnated. They knew they had an opportunity with some new rules and regulations and had some trouble getting organized around making the most out of this opportunity. So they decided to apply the best practices, and one of the first things they did was really learn from their past experiences. They were fabulous at what they did, and they decided to take the time to study what had they done that was similar to the kind of challenge that was in front of them. So they got a very good shared understanding of what their goals were, what they were shooting for, what they thought was possible, and then were able to apply learning from all their good years of experience. With that kind of confidence, they were more willing to take some risks and do some things differently because they were somewhat bolstered, if you will, by the rich discussion they had had on what had gone well in the past. So they were courageous and they took risks in both the actual work they were taking on and in the communications that they were implementing around the office. With that track now being set, morale was up. They were talking about what was really important. They were talking about why their goals and new initiatives were important, what difference they would make, and what people's personal connections to them would really look like. People understood very clearly what was in it for the firm, what was in it for them personally, and you could see the momentum building. The milestones on the plan were recognized. There was very clear monitoring and celebrations when things went well, and when things didn't go so well, there was an organized effort to get back to the table and learn what was next. And of course, the most obvious benefit of the good team building was concrete outcomes. This firm tripled their growth in 3 years because they fully leveraged the opportunity that was presented in a way that kept people unified, enthusiastic, and motivated to accomplish their goals.